Fellow coders, welcome to day 13 of Kaggle's 30 days of machine learning challenge. In this video, we're going to learn about data machine learning pipelines that we build using Scikit-Learn, and also we're going to learn about cross-validation, for which we have already seen a little bit about model validation in the previous sections. So if you are new here, this is a channel where I make programming tutorials focused on data science and machine learning. And we are doing this series of 30 days of Kaggle machine learning challenge, and where I actually take you through the tutorial, and then sometimes we do exercise and sometimes we don't, where I let you do exercise yourself. So if you have to get started, if you're new here, like I said, you have to sign into your Kaggle account. So just sign into your Kaggle account. In my case, I've already signed in. This is a Kaggle notebook where they're going to teach us about pipelines. And the first thing is, before even we see what is a pipeline, so first we need to understand why do we need pipeline. So one of the important reasons why do we need to build a machine learning pipeline, especially using Scikit-Learn, if you want to build a machine learning, or more importantly, a robust machine learning script. So the first reason is, like, we need cleaner code. So having machine learning pipeline, if you can use pipeline option that is available in Scikit-Learn, you can have a cleaner code, which means your code looks more readable and easier for others to understand. So instead of manually doing every step like pre-processing, cross-validation, everything step by step, if you actually build a pipeline, it can help you in keeping your code clean. At the same time, number of lines reduce, which means your code doesn't look as much messy as it is. So cleaner code can lead to readability, and then all these advantages are there. And the second reason is fewer bugs. So when you have a cleaner code, you tend to have less bugs, and even if you have bugs, you tend to identify where the bug is. Other than that, you can actually there is a very little chance that you can actually make a mistake as such, because when you have a pipeline, you have a very set of predefined process of how you're going to do it. You're going to do pre-processing, like some transformation in that, whatever you want to do, then you're going to do modeling. So it's going to be a set of steps, sequential step. So it's very easy for you to do those steps rather than and so there is a very little chance that you might miss something. And then the third reason is it's very easier to productionize. So moving a model from your typical Jupyter notebook to a production environment is usually challenging, but having a pipeline means it's slightly easier for you to do, and it's easier for you to move it, also deploy at scale. And then finally, it is better for you to do model validation, especially with respect to cross validation. If you are using a pipeline, it becomes easier and cleaner, like better when you do cross validation. While these are the reasons that they have given, so one other important reason that has been given on the Scikit-Learn's documentation that you should definitely check out is the safety or data leakage aspect. So if you are building a model, imagine you are building a model, and when you build a model, you have a trained data set and a validation data set. And the reason you do model validation, trained data set and a validation data set split is to keep your model completely away from your validation data set, so that whatever you build on test data set generalize for your validation data set. But what might happen, which is also called as data leakage or leaking statistics from your test or validation data, is that sometimes if you are not using a pipeline, it is possible that you unintentionally leak an information from your validation data set into your model training process. To give you an example, let's say that you have got missing values, and then you are going to use mean for missing values, or you've got one hot encoding or some encoding technique. Now what might happen is that you might be unintentionally taking a chunk of validation data set's value, and then you have created a mean, and now that mean is going to be a leaked information from your training test or validation data set, which might make your model slightly overfit during this process. Because what you might think is like, oh, my model is actually scoring well on validation data set. Probably you might think that your model is actually generalizing well, but what is in turn happening is, because you made a mistake or there was a data leakage from your validation data set to training information, like training data set, while you're doing the training, it is indeed actually doing the opposite, and it is overfitting. And then when you actually score it against the actual real world data set or test data set, your model is going to perform very bad. So model safety in terms of data leakage is another very important reason why having a pipeline, which means like having a very clearly defined sequence of steps, would help you avoid this. Because when you use pipeline, so the same set of sample is used for your transformation, like pre-processing, and also for prediction, so which means you are basically avoiding any potential leaking option. So that is another important reason other than what the 4 reasons that Kaggle has given. Now that we know that instead of writing every step individually, like pre-processing, like transformation, which is also part of pre-processing, model building, everything individually, we have learned that if we actually have a pipeline, if we build a pipeline, then it might be easier for us to easier for us to do all these things. So that's something that we learned. So let me quickly show you how Scikit-Learn model Scikit-Learn model pipeline might look like. So there is an article, so which whoever has written this article, thanks for this. So if you look at this thing, this is a typical Scikit-Learn pipeline sequence. So first you define a pre-process like pipeline, and then you define a transformer where you can do like imputation for numeric, categorical, all these things, and then whatever you want to do, you basically do the transformation, and then finally you are going to build the model. So all these things, if you see, it's part of one single pipeline. So you can just keep this intact, and then you can just repeat it as much as times you want whenever you want to do. So basically this pipeline option helps you do certain things. Like for example, even if you look at this screenshot, so you can see this pipeline option, it lets you do the pre-processing, transformation, and then fit everything in one single line. So it becomes then you actually get all the advantages we were just discussing about. Now that we have visually seen how pipeline looks, let's quickly read it, the reason that Kaggle has given. So pipelines are a simple way to keep your data pre-processing model code organized. Specifically, a pipeline bundles the process of pre-processing on model steps, so you can use the whole bundle as if it is a single step. That's what we just saw. And then let's quickly go ahead and then look at the example that they've given. So if you are following the previous videos, you might actually see, you might have noticed that we were building a model in the previous videos, and that model is using housing dataset from Melbourne. So the model would look something like this thing. And now we are going to see how we can actually use the same thing, but instead of actually writing everything from manually, like step by step, like doing the pre-processing everything, we are going to see how to use the Scikit-Learn pipeline to do that. So if you again remember what we have done in the past is we had missing values. We try to replace the missing values with average simple imputation, and now we are going to see how to do those things. So the first thing is we need something that can actually hold our imputation or model the process together. So for that we are going to use a column transformer that will bundle all the different pre-processing steps together. So that's why you need column transformer. And then we import pipeline class because we want to build a pipeline, simple imputer for missing value imputation, one-hot encoder for handling the categorical data and encoding them into one-hot encoding. So now that we have imported the required classes, now what is next that we are going to do is we are going to have simple imputer and then define what we want, like what kind of imputation because it's a numerical data, we are saying constant, so that it takes an average value. And then for categorical value we are going to say that mode, or when we do one-hot encoding, then we are going to say that it should ignore the unknown handles. Ignore the unknowns, handle unknowns, we say ignore, which is if there is a value that was not present in the training, and then if you get it, so it might get confused. So to avoid that, we just say that ignore the unknown ones. Now that we have defined our numerical transformer, which is for missing value imputation of numerical columns, missing value imputation of categorical columns. Now what we are going to do is we are going to bundle the processing using column transformers. So column transformer of, then we say we have to define the two things that we did. So where we will give the numerical columns and categorical columns. So if you have noticed, we already have numerical columns and categorical columns. We have already extracted these. So now in this step, basically we are actually bundling the pre-processing step and creating a new object called preprocessor. Now that we have our preprocessor ready, now next step is for us to define our model. So in the previous videos, you might have seen that we were using random forest regressor. So let's define the random forest regressor. Again, this is the same Scikit-Learn API where you define and then fit and then predict and then finally evaluate. But that step might change a little bit. That's what you're going to notice right now. So now that we have defined the model, we can start using the pipeline to define the pipeline, how it can combine the pre-processing and modeling step. So there are certain important things for you to notice. One is, if you look at this code, we have only one single step where we do the pre-processing and where we do the model as well. So it is same step, so pre-processing and model as well. And then we proceed with fit that we'll just see. So in a single line of code, unlike before where we used to do imputation separately, one-hot encoding separately, model training separately, so we are going to do everything in the same step. And again, this is what we spoke about, handling the messy data. And then the next thing is, if you notice one more thing where we did not process the validation data set for whatever pre-processing missing value, whatever we didn't do that for validation data set. And the reason we did not do that is because unprocessed features that we are sending when we send it to predict, if we are using pipeline, you can see we have defined the pipeline object, then we are using the same to fit and then the same to predict. So when we use the pipeline object, which means whatever pre-processing that we have applied before in this step will also get applied whenever we are going to use the validation data as well. So if we do not have a pipeline, so we need to make sure that we actually do all these things. But if we have a pipeline, then the pipeline takes care of these things. We don't have to manually remember to do those steps, like replicate those steps. Again, this is another way how we can actually avoid something on the advantage of having a pipeline. So now that we have seen the few nuances, let's look into the code slightly detailed. We're going to import mean absolute error, MAE, that's the error metric, evaluation metric that we have been dealing with. And then we have got pipeline, the class pipeline, and then in that we are defining the steps, which is we are saying first is pre-processing, second is model. Preprocessor comes from here, this object, and model object comes from here, which we have already defined in the previous cells. The next thing is, now you're going to fit the training data set with the pipeline object that you have created. And then the next step is you're going to predict and you're going to use the validation data set and you're going to predict. So fit and then predict, but you're going to give unprocessed validation data set, that just like we saw. And after we have the predictions, simply as we usually do, we are going to evaluate, where we are going to see the score for validation data set and prediction. So we basically have mean absolute error, and then so our machine learning process ends here. So having a pipeline, like you see, having a pipeline means whatever we used to, so to quickly see, even like we can actually see the code that we wrote previously, how we handle categorical data. If you go there and see how we handle categorical data, you could see like this is all the things that we were doing. This is all the things that we were doing separately for our training data set, separately for validation data set, and then we had defined a function to score the model. But now because of this new pipeline, what we can actually do is everything becomes very clean, and also the other advantages that we discussed. In fact, we can we can actually read it like how a pipeline is. That's why it's called pipeline, right? So the steps, pre-processing, model, then you can go back and see what has been happening in the pre-processing world, and then how we have defined model, and then finally we have the result in place. Now we came to the conclusion, which is pipelines are really valuable for writing clean or neat machine learning codes. Avoid errors, especially you can also avoid data leakage, because you are not doing anything like you're not imputing and then splitting, and you're not doing anything which is against standard. So you are also avoiding unknown errors that might occur. So these are like some good advantages of pipeline, and a lot of people love using pipeline, and you should start using it if you want your machine learning script to look better. So next we have an exercise where I'll just quickly show you and then show you the exercise, but I'm not planning to solve this. So most of this you might be able to actually copy the code and paste it and then try it yourself. So we have the other machine learning code that we have been writing, where we again use random forest regressor, and then we try to predict the house prices for a different place. I think it's Iowa. And now what we are trying to do here is we are trying to use pipeline for the same thing. So first a numerical transformer to impute missing values, categorical transformer for handling missing values and categorical data and one-hot encoding, and then we are going to define the preprocessor object, and then we are going to define our model, and once our model is ready, then we are going to fit, predict, and then see the score. So basically it is the same thing. You can definitely do it yourself just by copying the code that we already have and then writing it. So this for you. In the next section we are going to learn about cross validation, again another very important topic in machine learning. If you are going to do machine learning as a profession, I mean, like, not just hobbyist, again, even if you're going to do it for Kaggle, so this is one of the very important concepts that you should always spend more time on. What is cross validation? So machine learning, as they say, it is an iterative process. So you are going to build one model, and then you are going to build another model, you're going to build another model, and then you have an evaluation metric. You're going to compare all the different models and then see which model is doing better, and then you're going to probably take those hyperparameters that you have used for that particular model, and then you get the best model. So this is one thing. The second thing is you are going to build different models to avoid you're going to, in the process of building different models, you're probably going to try to avoid overfitting, so that your model generalizes well in your real world test data set as well. But one of the issues that you know, or if you had read about bias variance trade-off, or the trade-off between having a large amount of training validation data set, is that when using the regular approach that we are currently doing, which is like so far we have been doing 80% train, 20% test or validation data set. If you use this approach, the disadvantage that you might have is, if you want to increase the size of the validation data set, which is to reduce the chance of overfitting, right? If you have a very less amount of validation data set, there is still some chance that your model might overfit, because again it's random, right? Random chance. So if you want to reduce that option, then you have to increase the size of the validation data set. And if you want to increase the size of the validation, then by your current method you will reduce the size of our training data set. And if you are going to reduce the size of our training data set, then our models are not going to be as good as it would have been otherwise. Why? Because you're actually reducing the amount of data points from which our model can learn signal, so which means it's not going to be good enough. So now this is like a trade-off discussion, right? Do you want enough training data set, or do you want enough validation data set? But what if you want both? And that is where you have some good methods for you to handle this, and that's what we call as cross validation, where instead of just simply taking 80% and 20%, which is more like your holdout data set methodology, what we are going to do is we are going to look at the method like cross validation. And what is, like, one of the method is like cross validation. And what are we going to do in cross validation? We are going to split our data set into n number of folds. Let's say in this case 5 folds. So we're going to say, okay, so we have, let's say, 1000 data points. We are going to split our data set into 5 folds or 5 pieces, and then it's going to look like this: first fold, second fold, third fold, fourth fold, fifth fold. And then in every iteration, we are going to have one data set which is not the same, okay, which is not the same fold. So we are going to have one as our validation data set. So in the first iteration, we're going to use the first fold as validation. In the second iteration, we're going to use the second fold as validation. So like that, we are going to change it. So what does it mean? It means that you are going to have a good amount of validation data set, which again changes every time. So even if in one validation data set, if you have got a good score by chance, because maybe your model generalized to that particular validation, but if you repeat this as an experiment for like 5 folds, then then you are minimizing the chance of your model overfitting, even with a very random chance. Like even in that case you are minimizing it, and again your CV score, like cross validation score, would make your model a better cross validation score, or a cross validation score that matches with your test score would make your model more robust. So in terms of Kaggle, if you want to discuss this, so in terms of Kaggle, like we discussed in the past, that Kaggle has got a public LB and private LB. So your cross validation score, CV score, is more like the kind of score that you would get on the public LB score. So if your public LB score and your cross validation score is close enough, then you can say that your model is generalizing well on the 50% of data set that Kaggle is going to score you against, which also means your model is going to do decent in your the private leaderboard as well. So this is kind of trying to make your model as robust as possible. Okay, so now let's look into the part that Kaggle has given, in which the experiment 1, if you look at things, so we're going to use the first validation and use everything else as training data. So which means what is happening, so if you have 100,000 data points, you just use the 120% as your validation, remaining 80% as training. And the same way you're going to build or evaluate, like iterate for 5 times, and you just repeat it. So every time you use one as your whole load data set, everything else is your training data set. And now what happens is, when you do this thing, your model, the model quality is measured against all the rows. So you're going to measure your model against all the rows, so which means like there is a very good chance that it generalizes well, because that's what you're trying to measure against and evaluate against. So now that we know how cross validation is done, so let's look at some of the benefit, some of the reasons, or when would you do cross validation. So again, this is a trade-off discussion. For example, when you cross validation takes time, so you can see like you're splitting the data set, doing 5 iterations. So cross validation is going to take a reasonable amount of time. So which means it's about a priority, about what you care most. So if you have smaller amount of data set where 80 to 20% split would mean like the cost is high, cost of failure is high, and the cost of not having a good model is high, because your data set is small. And if you just simply do 80 to 20%, there's a very high chance that your model might be overfitting. So that is a good place where you should do cross validation, because your data set is in fact small, your cross validation might not take a lot of time. So in terms of computational burden, so it's not going to be a big problem. For larger data set, the advantage of having a single validation is good, because your data set is anyways larger. Like say, even if you do 20% or 30%, you still have a good amount of data points in your validation data set. That is good. And your code might run faster when you have single validation data set itself, instead of doing a cross validation strategy. But still, the problem is you have to now ask yourself, like, even if I have larger data set, how important I want my model to be robust. So that is a question that only you can answer, the kind of domain that you're dealing with. So if that is something that you have a good machine, you can manage, you can actually manage the time it is going to take. Still you can go for cross validation strategy. So basically, cross validation strategy is a way for you to make sure that your model generalizes well in the real world, whether it is your Kaggle computation or whether it is your actual industry or the organization's problem that you're trying to solve. Having a good cross validation means you can put, or your team or whoever is going to watch for your model can actually trust the model, and then you can also trust your model in such a way that that this is going to generalize well. It's not going to just show some good score that you can flaunt on PowerPoint presentation that you have built so and so accuracy of model. So this is basically more like a trade-off discussion for you to understand when do you want to do cross validation, but it's up to you always to take the call and then see. So another thing that people can do is you can actually do cross validation, a couple of iteration, and then if you see the score is same, then you can probably go with like a single validation strategy itself. This is again to see that okay, maybe single validation gives almost same amount of similar score that your cross validation is doing, so the data distribution is similar, so you don't want to basically spend more time doing cross validation. But again, like I said, if you can do cross validation, it's always good to do cross validation. So now that we have learned about cross validation, let's see how we can start doing cross validation combining with the model pipeline step that we were doing in the previous section. So we need random forest regressor for building a model, pipeline for building a pipeline, simple imputer for handling missing values. And once we have that thing, we are going to define the step. So you can see, rather than defining these as individual steps, they are defining it in like same model pipeline. Like if you see the previous section, what we did is we did imputation separately, we did random forest regressor as a separate instance, but here dynamically, like they are actually creating it, which is also fine. You can do that. Now that our pipeline is ready, now we need to get the cross validation score function, and that comes from model selection. So cross validation score takes your model pipeline, or in case if you have model as well. So in this case, it's a pipeline, and pipeline, and then the values, test value, explanatory variables, target value, and the number of folds that you want in the CV value. And in this particular case, it is being multiplied by -1 because the scoring methodology that we have given is negative mean absolute error. So if you want to quickly take a peek into all the evaluation metrics that you have, you can have a look at it. So that is why you have -1, but otherwise you don't need this. So it might change based on the scoring methodology that you have taken here. So at the end, we have got 5 different mean absolute error scores for 5 different folds that we have done. And you can see, like for some it is 30,000, for some it is 23, 26. So now you can actually see that it is good to do cross validation, because maybe like in one case you would have got a lesser score if you had done only single validation set, like with whole load data set. But looking at something like this, you can always like tell yourself that okay, it's a good thing that we did cross validation, because this itself varies like between, like if you see from 23,000 to did I say 23,000, 236,000 to 301,000. So that's a huge variance. So now that we have done cross validation, and then we have also seen the individual scores, just quick information about why did they use negative mean absolute error. So it is up to you always to choose what scoring that you want. Sometimes in Kaggle competitions, if you actually have noticed, they would already give you an evaluation metric on which the leaderboard calculation is going to happen. So it's always better to use something that is relevant to your particular case rather than just simply taking anything. So in this case, the reason that they've given why they have gone with a negative mean absolute error is using a positive mean absolute error means higher number is always better. So using a negative number in this case means it is going to be more consistent to not to not go for the highest number always possible. So you may not use it anywhere else except cross validation scoring. That's what has been given to you here. And after we have the cross validation, so we can just simply say if we combine all the models, if we combine predictions of all the models, this is the average score that we would get, which is indeed better than this. Which is indeed better than this, which is maybe underfitting, which is indeed better than this, which may be overfitting, we don't know. So overall, this is our average mean absolute error after we have done all the experiments. Again, this is one of the places where you would build multiple models and then combine it to minimize the overall error, and also to minimize any chance of overfitting, which is something that we do with cross validation. There are a lot of cross validation strategies you should definitely check on. So when the moment you go and then you start read about cross validation Scikit-Learn, so you would start probably seeing all kind of different approaches where like different ways cross validation happens, and you can then start deciding which cross validation strategy is better for you. When do you want to use what? For example, k-fold is, when do you want to use k-fold CV, when do you want to use stratified k-fold CV? There are really good content on internet that would explain this to you, so I would strongly recommend you to go check it out after you finish this exercise. And that takes us to the next exercise, which again I'm not going to do that, but just to quickly summarize what is happening in the exercise, it's going to be, you're basically forking a Kaggle notebook, and after you do that thing, it's going to show some content, and then we are going to repeat the same code that we have been doing for quite a while, which is to build a random forest model. So now you are going to import random forest pipeline, simple imputer for missing value imputation, define your preprocessor and model here in the pipeline, and then use the same negative mean absolute error and then get the score. And then like couple of questions that they have asked you to do, so which is in this case return the average MAE over the 3 CV folds of random forest. So if you see like you would get a bunch of scores, so you can basically get repeat the same thing for 3 CV instead of 5 CV. So just copy the code and start running it, and then you can also get which is better. Like again, like I said, modeling is an iterative process, so which means you can build a lot of different models with different parameters and then try to evaluate which model is better, and that's what this is. So you basically build different models with the different parameter values, which is in this case number of trees, because it's a random forest, and then you can get the best one. So if you have seen in one of the previous videos, we actually scored something and then got we stored the result in a dictionary and got the minimum parameter where we had the least amount of MAE, mean absolute error. Again, these are like something that you can do it yourself, try it yourself. If you are stuck somewhere, please let me know in the comment section. I'll try to help you out. Otherwise, this was a very quick walkthrough of pipelines and cross validation. These two things would look good as much as you read, but it's good for you to practice with more data science competitions, machine learning competitions on Kaggle, so you get to know what other people have done. One thing that I would recommend you to do is, for example, the competition that we are even trying to handle, which is this competition. If you go open it in a new tab and then go to the code section and then just type CV and then see, most likely you would see some notebook related to cross validation. So you can click this, like 2 years back somebody has built. When we click this, you would most likely get to know what kind of cross validation strategy that they have used. So for example, in this you can see k-fold. Now you can see k-fold. If you search for k-fold, you can see how they have done k-fold and how it has scored. So all these things. So one of the best ways to learn is, again, you can even search for fold. Okay, there is nothing called fold here. Cross, anything cross. Okay, so again it resets the same. So the best way to learn is actually go to the actual competitions, see the kind of notebooks that people have built, mostly like except the highest, like the best models. So people are usually very nice and sharing their strategies, even if you do not get it during the course of the competition. Many times after the competition is finished, if you go to the discussion, you would get to see the higher like better scoring models and what kind of strategies that they use. That is one of the ways for you to learn, and also by doing it yourself. So definitely try it out, pipelines and cross validation yourself on probably different data set, and then try to experience how it looks, how your score improves without that and with that, and then how efficient your model looks with pipeline and without pipeline. So that takes us to the end of this video. In the next video, we're going to learn about XGBoost and data leakage. We learned a little bit about data leakage already. Again, XGBoost is a huge popular model. So we're going to just look into only the code section. So looking forward for the next video. If you have any comments, please let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, stay safe.